All right, we're up to chapter 11, or as we say in Miami, capítulo 11. Building a business the sun never sets on. The worst part of our business is you have to hop on planes and fly all over the country or the world. The coolest part of our business is you get to hop on planes and fly all over the country or the world. Both of those statements are true. One of the most frequent statements you'll hear from your new distributors is something like, "Hey, I have an incredible person in," and then they name some city, state, or country. "Do we have anything going on there?" That's exciting to hear, as it could mean your group is about to have some strong growth in a new market. Unfortunately, this usually signifies something quite different. This question often is generated because someone is looking for a distraction. Distractions means people don't have to actually be building their business. And talking about or waiting to build teams somewhere else can serve as that distraction. A team member will text you frequently asking when Belgium is going to be opening because they have an old college roommate there. Meanwhile, Germany, where they live and have 99% of their contacts, is already open. Instead of building their business locally, which they can actively do right now, they're fantasizing about a faraway city or country because that gives them a chance to procrastinate. Here's what you need to know and make sure each of your people knows. Your local lines should be a large percentage of your income. You need to have a strong, sound, local organization that grows on a continuous basis. You should always begin with your local team and look at developing long-distance lines in depth only after the local group is going. Working in your local market is still the easiest, most cost-effective way to build. As you begin to develop depth, lines will start to expand into other states. By the time you get down 7 or 8 levels, it will not be unusual for you to be in 8 or 10 different states or provinces. But first, you must develop a strong local foundation. All right, let's be looking at long-distance lines. Before we go further, let me clarify what I mean by a long-distance line. If you can get off work at 5 p.m., drive to a market in time to start a meeting by 8, that's still a local line. I realize this requires serious effort and commitment, but this line can really still be handled in the same manner as your other local lines. There are lots of good reasons to build long distance, but there's also some drawbacks if it's not done correctly. Let's get those drawbacks out of the way. All right, long-distance drawbacks. First, of course, long-distance lines require a larger investment of both time and money than local ones do. Fly 1,500 miles to spend a weekend with a new line, and with everything added up, you can easily spend $1,000. Another drawback of working with long-distance lines is you cannot be there to look people in the eye when they experience challenges or hug them when they celebrate victories. And sometimes you're sitting across the table from one of their candidates at a 2-on-1 might be the very thing that gets that candidate in. But because newer services like Zoom are increasing in quality all the time, creating a connection with people on the other end is becoming less and less of an issue. Still, it's not the same as your being in a city working alongside your team member. It's for these reasons that I encourage you to build a solid local group first. This gives you the benefit of using the income you develop from your local lines to reinvest in your emerging long-distance ones. Long-distance benefits. Okay, enough talk about the drawbacks. What about the delicious reasons you should want to build long-distance lines? Having long-distance lines is the best defense against the following scenarios: overzealous government regulators, negative publicity, fluctuating economic cycles, loss of key leaders, natural or even unnatural disasters. Any one of these situations could create complete financial ruin for you if your entire business is tied up with only one group or area. Let's suppose you have a politically driven attorney general in your state who wants to run for governor. She's looking for some free publicity to build her name recognition. She decides the best way is to take on one of those evil, mean pyramids, and she picks your company to go after. She's holding press conferences every day for 2 weeks as she attacks your company. What do you think that kind of publicity would do to your income if it were on the evening news and cell phone alerts every night? The same thing can happen if the local newspaper does an investigative journalism series with the slant that direct selling is a ripoff and your company ends up on the homepage of their website all week. If your whole group is local and the majority of it is led by 1 or 2 people, where would you be should they leave for another opportunity? Economic upturns and downturns can have a dramatic impact on your business. At the time I'm writing this, there are countries with an inflation rate of 100% a month. The challenges of running a business in that environment are staggering. The closing of a large employer in a town could have a severe economic impact in that area. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, tsunamis, tornadoes, volcanoes. Mother Nature has more than a few surprises up her sleeve, and they're not always pleasant ones. Then throw in the man-made disruptors such as epidemics, war, dictatorships, and Super Bowl parades, and you have a serious list of occurrences that can disrupt both your business and your income. It's dangerous and very foolish to leave yourself at the mercy of circumstances you have no control over. The intelligent action is to protect yourself and diversify your income by sponsoring long distance. If your company just operates in one country, you want to have lines in all the different areas. And if your company is international, spreading your business between different continents is a very intelligent diversification strategy. Here's something else to support this idea, something that might shock you. The best kept secret in leverage sales is that your long distance lines are your strongest lines. Most people think it's just the opposite. They think their local group is the strongest because they have the most people there. They see more people more often at functions. And there seems to always be people coming by their house, picking up marketing materials, borrowing products, or just looking for some friendly advice. In actuality, your local line is often your most codependent line. You'll notice that your people in a line 2,000 miles away don't call you when they need products. They don't poach an extra distributor kit when they run out, and they don't ask you to do their presentation for their hot new candidate. They maintain adequate inventory since no one is there to cover for them. Because they're far away from you, they become self-sufficient a lot quicker than your local lines do. Working long distance forces you to do what you should be doing anyway with your local lines. Work yourself out of a job. We're going to talk about this more in an upcoming chapter, one of the leadership ones. I'm going to talk about what it means to be a helicopter sponsor. So stay tuned for that. All right, some other benefits. If you're like me and you enjoy traveling, you'll love having groups around the country or the world in scenic destinations. Long-distance sponsoring is a wonderful way to finance your travel and get great tax breaks. It allows you to see some beautiful locales and develop new friends along the way. If your company has an aggressive international presence, you can develop a business where the sun never sets on it. You can go to bed at night, and there are people on the other side of the world making you money while you sleep. Think about that. Okay, starting a new line. Hopefully, I've convinced you that building some long-distance lines makes sense and you want to do that. Let's discuss some of the strategies that can ensure you accomplish this in the best way possible. Follow the market. The first thing I would recommend is to allow the market to direct you where to build instead of trying to tell the market what you want. That latter option doesn't have a lot of successful practitioners. Here's what I mean. Suppose your company announces that they're opening Japan. Well, that sounds romantic to you. You've always wanted to visit the land of the rising sun, and you love shrimp tempura, right? That by itself is not enough to justify building a line there. International flights are quite expensive, and you have no foundation to build on, nor logical place to start. Countless times in my career, I have seen people become enamored with a foreign market and invest large sums of money to develop it from scratch. They rent an apartment for 3 months, pay for meeting space, run advertising, and hire translators. I've even seen people pack up and move to a new country without knowing the language or anyone there. In all the times I've seen this happen, never once has it actually worked. Just because you love Italy or the idea of having a group in Australia, these aren't realistic reasons to build in those places. You want to let the demand rise organically within your team. So, when the company announces that they're opening Japan, the first thing you do is start polling your team. Is anybody from there? Used to live there, went to university there, have any friends and relatives there? Make sure that there are actually enough contacts and potential in a new area to make launching the market viable. If there's not, pass it by and wait for another market with potential. Muy importante. Don't succumb to pressure from your company to open in markets that don't make sense for you. I know I'm going to piss off some company owners and executives by saying that. But I've seen situations where the company opens a particular market and pressures all of their top leaders to build there, whether they have connections or not. They are unknowingly being short-sighted. Not all executive teams actually understand how operations work in the field. As a leader, you need to protect yourself and your team from sometimes from well-meaning but ignorant requests, even if they come from the company. We're going to talk about that more in the leadership chapters. When you have contacts in a new market, let's say a market is opening and it looks like you have some viable contacts there. Or it's simply a case of having another city in a market you've already opened and you want to enroll somebody there. Here's the actual process that I recommend, and I did this with a lot of success. Let your new candidate or candidates know that this will be a long-distance market for you, and if they want your support, they'll need to commit to being self-motivated, coachable, and able to follow directions. Advise them that you will be working with them online and by phone initially, with the goal of developing a core team before you travel there. Make the enrollment only if they agree to those terms. If you're in Chicago and you have somebody in Mexico City and they say, I want you to fly down here and do my first meeting for my first one-on-one, it's just a bad idea. Follow this process I'm talking about here. If you're following the advice that we've talked about already in this book, then you have some form of a fast start or new member orientation for new people, right? And if you don't have this, you need to use this book and to just have them go through chapters 1 and 4. And that can be your new member orientation until you customize one. Have them check in with you as soon as they complete this. Verify that they've placed their activation order, procured the necessary marketing materials, and completed their candidate list. Then help them launch their major blast exactly as we talked about earlier. You can use Zoom or FaceTime for their two-on-ones and first meetings and also connect them with online presentations that your company might be doing. Of course, they'll want to know how soon you're going to visit their city and conduct an opportunity meeting or come and do a training for them. You're waiting to see at least 10 to 15 distributors, each doing their own major blast. Once that happens, it's time to schedule a visit. There should be enough critical mass to be worth the investment. When you do go, give them benchmarks for when you return. Provide them with a stretch goal of a certain amount of attendance for their regular meetings, a certain number of builders, or some rank advancements. Agree to return when they reach that benchmark. Now, let's talk about traveling for leverage. Your development to becoming a leader takes a big jump once you start to travel, support, and grow your long-distance lines. Many people fight this because they are just starting to see some extra cash flow and they want to use that money to juice up their lifestyle. But a smarter strategy, a much smarter strategy, is to reinvest that money into developing long-distance lines. You'll jack up your income and create better financial security at the same time. People, please, be the number one investor in your dream. If you don't invest in you, why would anyone else? A serious builder should be traveling 1 or 2 days a month. A mid-level rank should be out 3 or 4 days a month. And an elite pin rank with international lines may be traveling as much as 7 to 10 days a month. These are my general guidelines, so please counsel with your sponsorship line on this. But make sure that every month you're investing in some long-distance lines. And again, just riffing here, just so you know about duplication. You say, how does it duplicate a top leader is traveling 7 or 10 days a month? Well, it duplicates fine because people at that rank, they don't have a day job anymore, right? They're making 35,000 euros a month or $75,000 a month. They don't have a day job. They've got teams in 8 different countries around the world. They've got a very nice ongoing residual income. They can afford to reinvest in building that income even larger. When you reach the point where you have a large team, one of the most important actions you will take to foster growth is choosing where to travel. Each month, you'll check your back office looking for sparks of emerging activity. Then you want to schedule trips to pour gasoline on those sparks and turn them into raging fires. When you're new in the business, just traveling 1 or 2 days a month might be a challenge because you still got a regular job. I get that. You'll have to work around your days off and maybe use some personal and vacation days. But if you want to ultimately replace that job, you need to make a sacrifice at some point. As long as you follow the process I'm outlining here, your travel to long-distance lines will be an investment, not an expense. This is key, guys. We're looking to invest in long-distance lines, not just spend money on long-distance lines. Let's look at one more strategy, a counterintuitive one that can have a really rewarding return on investment for you. Attracting emerging leaders. Sometimes the best approach to grow a team of leaders in another area isn't going to them, but getting them to come to you. Understand something. You wouldn't do this with a new team. But if an area is developing and some leaders are emerging, you might invite those leaders to make a field trip to your town for a few days. And possibly, just possibly, offer to pay some of their expenses to help reduce the cost. This would be, again, just as you would invest in a line by flying there, you might invest in a line by saying, hey, and I'm going to give you guys $500 to help cover your hotel and meals and whatever, because you want to get them to your area. This can be a really powerful tool if you have large, successful events in your area. Even better, let's say you live near the corporate home office and you've got this beautiful manufacturing facility with state-of-the-art robotics, and when people take a tour of that facility, they're so impressed. That might be worth getting people to see something like that, right? By attending these events in person, your new people get to see the exact outcome they're trying to create back in their own area. They witness some of the planning, setup, and execution of a large event. Maybe even sit in on a special training session or simply have lunch with some of your local leaders. The electric energy of the main event is sure to inspire these visitors and do their most important thing: build belief. You've probably heard me talk about Luca Maloney and Lily Rosales. They do an amazing job with this, getting people to fly into their area. They have huge local events. The thousands of people in the hall. People are just swinging from the chandeliers. They're so excited, right? So they get visitors come in from other countries. They see that, and then they return home jacked up with their hair on fire. All right, so think about it. It's kind of a counterintuitive, but in many cases, this can be really effective for you. Next up, we're going to have a little fun and study exactly what you should not do.